Hello friends, Adam here with FED. You may be one of those people that think Fire Emblem Engage's maps look too small. And that's okay, we're going to talk about that today. Now, we haven't seen enough of Engage to really have an idea of whether or not all the maps are going to be on the smaller side, especially when we compare it to Fire Emblem Three Houses that had a lot of bigger maps with some downtime. But the early indications, these early game maps, do seem to be more similar to the early game maps in games that have smaller maps overall. I'm thinking Fire Emblem Fate's Conquest seems to start similarly, or Radiant Dawn starts similarly. Now, those games still get some pretty epic grand scale maps later on, but the early game is fairly small. So what it really comes down to, this conversation we're having, is does map size matter? Does map size matter? And by map size, I mean like square by square. Does the amount of squares, tiles on the map matter to how fun the gameplay is? But before we get into that, I want to ask everyone to please subscribe. We're trying to reach 25,000 subscribers before the end of the year. It would mean a lot if you would subscribe. Thanks to everyone else who already has. We're already past 18,000, so thank you so much. It's really cool to see. Now continuing. Is a map being small or big an indication of whether or not the map is good? The obvious answer is no, right? I don't think anyone would just say, "Oh, this map is too big. I hate it." I think when people say a map is too big, what they really are saying is that the map is too empty, or there isn't enough to do. If you had a big map, guys, but it was full of objectives and items to collect and enemies to kill and villages to visit, things like that, things that keep you busy every single turn, I don't think you would say the map is too big, because I just don't think you would get bored. Maybe at a certain point you might say the map feels too long, but I mean, I guess you could save and take a break in the middle and make a save and come back later. Especially in games with like battle saves, but I guess that becomes a little more difficult when you have to like suspend, and then if you come in then you lose, you have to start the whole map over. That can be frustrating, I get that, but that's a whole different issue than saying the map is too big in my mind. And I think if people say a map is too small, which is a criticism that I've heard basically never. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say a map is too small, but what I think that would mean is that there's too much going on. It's overwhelming the player. And of course this is an incredibly objective thing. If you think a map is too big, if you don't think there's enough going on in a map, there's probably someone else who thinks about that same map and says, this is nice. This is my perfect level of things to do. I tend to fall on the side that likes to have every single turn for every single unit matter a lot. Similar to Conquest Chapter 10 is one that's brought up a lot. It's a defend map that makes almost pretty much every move, every turn for every unit matter. And that's really cool. I like that. But others find it stressful. Others find that it's not a good use of their leisure time to play a game that makes them, freak out about every single move, makes them think too hard. And that makes it sound like I'm calling people dumb or something. I'm not. I want to get that across, make that clear. I don't think it's bad if that's how you want to enjoy Fire Emblem. I would suggest maybe, and I think there's some games that really play into that. I think Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War really plays into this thought of having breaks between the action, having some falling action that allows the player to to calm down, rest, recollect their thoughts, and then gameplay-wise recollect their items, units, and just kind of get resettled before heading on to the next challenge. So there's something to be said for both sides. I think a big map, again, or a map that is less dense with enemies and objectives, can be just as effective as a map that is a quote-unquote smaller map that is dense and full of enemies and objectives. But it really is just going to come down to what the player wants. Now, looking at Fire Emblem Engage, again, we've only seen a few maps up to this point, but looking at what we have seen, it seems to fall more in line with some of the other games that start with smaller map sizes, right? with like denser stuff going on. I think of Fire Emblem Fates Conquest starts off fairly dense, right? Think of Chapter 6. Is it Chapter 6? Whatever, the first actual chapter of Conquest. It's either 6 or 7. Why can't I remember right now? But, you know, it's the one in the swamp with all the faceless. And there are quite a few enemies, and you kind of get boxed in if you're not careful, and I think there's a lot to do. And you have new units showing up. There's just a lot going on every turn, and that's exciting. So I think that the early game of Engage is going to be similar to the early game of Conquest. And I think you see other similarities between Fates and Engage already, even down to Alir sharing kind of like combat poses and attacks that Corrin would do. And I think that's because they're both like dragon people. You know, they're both like children of dragons, or they are dragons, whatever. And those similarities probably I think are definitely going to bleed into the gameplay. It's actually interesting. Side note, if you notice, this game feels a lot more like an older Fire Emblem game. And by older, I just mean like 3DS and prior than Three Houses. And I think that's because you can definitely tell that those people who worked on the 3DS titles are working on this as well. Maybe they worked on Three Houses, but I feel like Three Houses was definitely more of a Koei Tecmo production than anything. Because it just feels so unique from the rest of the games in the series, but this feels like a return to form, and I'm really excited about that. I love Three Houses, but it's a little different. It's a different experience. It isn't Fire Emblem to me. It's Fire Emblem adjacent. It feels like a spin-off more than anything. So I'm excited for a return to form here in Engage. And again, similar thing with maps. But really this comes down to, again, I'll say it again, it comes down to preference. So I want to know, what do you guys like? Do you guys like smaller maps with like dense enemy placement? Or do you like the bigger maps that allow for breaks between action? And do you think map objectives really feed into this feeling as well? I put up a poll recently about map objectives. I think currently defense is the defend objective is the one winning, but I'm going to make a separate video on that, looking at your comments and stuff. But maybe I'll throw some of these comments in that video as well if they pertain to it. But do you think there are some map objectives that really affect whether or not a big map or a small map work better size-wise and like enemy density-wise and stuff like that? But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to subscribe for more stuff about Fire Emblem. Of course, we're trying to reach that 25,000 subscriber mark by the end of the year. So if you wouldn't mind helping us get there, it'd be much appreciated. And to help other people find the video, please like the stream. Please like the video. I know it's like the most annoying thing to ask, but I even hate asking for you guys to subscribe. But it makes such a difference that I feel like I have to at this point, right? So please like the video. Again, comment your thoughts. Do you like small maps, big maps? Do objectives matter for that kind of stuff? And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time, friends.